Why wrapping your house can save your life. Of late, wildfires and heat waves have set the world ablaze. From Egypt to California, the orange frenzy has caused alarm, with warnings that parts of North America and Europe could be experiencing the worst fire season in the history of the world. Is it too late to save the world from the treacherous effects of global warming? Can the simple aluminum foil withstand the scorching blaze of these fires and save your life? Let's find out today. Welcome back to the Why Factory, where we answer life's biggest questions. Parts of the western US have witnessed record-breaking temperatures this year. These scorching temperatures, combined with the severe drought conditions, have, unfortunately, triggered a series of major wildfires. Like the pandemic wasn't enough this year. So far in 2021, California, which can be considered a hotspot for wildfires, has had more than twice as many acres of land burnt by wildfires as compared to a 5-year average. The situation is truly gruesome. Across the United States, more than 3.5 million acres have been burned just in 2021. That is 1 million more than what the situation was at this point in the fire season last year. As you might already know, 2020 was the most destructive fire season on record, and 2021 might just break this record. Turkey, too, has been having an incredibly horrible year with regards to wildfires. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan labeled these fires as the worst in its history. More than 200 fires affected western and southern Turkey, but most of these are now contained. But sadly, 175,000 hectares have been burned so far. That's more than 8 times the average number measured between 2008 and 2020 this time of the year. Greece, Siberia, and the Brazilian Amazon are all ablaze, and researchers say the situation is about to get worse. In fact, this fire season saw smoke from Siberia reach all the way to the North Pole for the first time in history. Climate change is knocking on our doorstep, and things are only about to get worse. Does that mean everything everywhere will be burnt to a crisp? Is there no way to save our homes? Well, there is one way, but it is quite expensive. And we're talking about aluminum. As the Caldor fire swept through the area surrounding Lake Tahoe in mid-September this year, one viral story emerged. It was a beacon of hope, a silver lining amongst the cloud of smoke, quite literally. A cabin that was wrapped in aluminum foil had withstood the blaze. But is this just another doctored video, or can wrapping your house with aluminum foil actually save your property and your life? Let's explore aluminum foils. This foil is super popular in the kitchen, and since about 1920 we've been packing food with it. It's super easy and low cost to do so. But can we use aluminum foil to wrap our homes? Isn't aluminum a fire hazard? Or won't it burst into flame when things are already crazy? Aluminum foil doesn't catch fire. Even if it gets heated in a fire, at the most, it may become discolored, which could lead us to believe that it has been burned. But this discoloration is not from the fire itself, but the result of impurities from the smoke of the fire becoming attached to its surface. You can use solvents to wipe off these stubborn smoke particles and it would be good as new. Of course, it will eventually catch fire, as most things do, but it requires an extremely high temperature of about 1220 degrees Fahrenheit or 660 degrees Celsius to ignite. This property of aluminum is so great that sometimes in wildfires, firefighters actually hide in aluminum foil bubble sheets. Even the world's largest tree, a giant sequoia named General Sherman, recently got a blanket to help protect it from the raging wildfires in the region. No, the entire tree wasn't wrapped in an aluminum blanket, but just its massive 36 feet wide base. Keen on saving General Sherman and several other high-priority sequoia trees, firefighters at the site of the raging KNP complex fire that hasn't yet been contained began wrapping their base with aluminum-based blankets. There are signs that this strategy of the sheathing the tree's thick bark with a synthetic material actually worked. The revered 4 guardsman sequoias that stand at the edge of the forest were saved using this method. So why are firefighters using these blankets to save the world's biggest trees? Well, firefighters are using these blankets to prevent fire embers from getting into the tree through old fire scars. Fire scars, which are also called cat faces, are a serious threat for trees as they can give rise to new fire and hence burn those giant trees from the inside out. In fact, these fire blankets have been used to protect structures for quite some time now. The firefighters were instructed to treat the sequoias like buildings or homes and wrap them up, while dousing any scar face and raking away any dry leaves. Can this principle be used for wrapping houses as well? Let's talk about the miraculous survival of the cabin located in a forested area near Sierra Al Tahoe. It was one of the few structures that made it out of the fire intact. The viral pictures of the cabin covered in aluminum have been compared to a baked potato. Of course, the difference between a baked potato and a wrapped house is huge. The former is meant to be exposed to heat, and the wildfires are multiple times hotter than your ordinary oven. It wasn't confirmed whether this cabin used the aluminum fire blankets to construct wraps from the company Firesat. But for those who live in areas where forest fires are a yearly occurrence, just like rain, these fire blankets and aluminum wraps are a real saving grace, provided that the homeowners have sufficient time to stick them on. Of course, the process involves thousands of staples, and no, we're not exaggerating, which means that it isn't ideal if a rapidly spreading fire is bearing down on a property. But if you have the time, wrapping your house in foil can actually save your life. Here's another example. Just a few days after the cabin went viral, Martin Dickey, just another resident near Lake Tahoe, began to panic when he saw a huge wildfire rapidly racing down the slope towards his wooden house. Before the fire could engulf his house, Martin, a contractor by profession, did some quick research. He then decided to wrap his wooden home with an aluminum protective covering. The material he used could withstand intense heat for short periods, and while it does resemble tin foil from your kitchen drawers that you use to wrap a sandwich, it has better heat resistance properties. The wrapping material has been modeled after tent-like bubble shelters that are used by wildland firefighters to protect themselves from blazing fires if they're trapped. So the science behind it is that the wrapping deflects heat away from the buildings, hence preventing flammable materials from combusting. In addition to this, it keeps the airborne embers from slipping through open vents and other openings or fenestrations, hence slowing down the spread of the fire. These wraps are not just made from aluminum, they also have a fiberglass backing and can be stuck with the help of acrylic adhesives. The wraps can withstand a heat of up to 1,022 degrees Fahrenheit or 550 degrees Celsius, and then only ignite at around 660 to 700 degrees Celsius as stated earlier. These wraps are an absolutely brilliant innovation, not just because they protect homes from damage. Until a few years ago, a huge part of wildfire damage could be traced back to burning homes as their flames would burn nearby vegetation. There have also been some studies that suggest that structure-to-structure fires play a huge role in spreading the fire since it creates something of a domino effect. The tremendous heat that's generated as a result of homes burning causes manufactured materials to actually burst into flames, spreading flaming embers for miles. A wrapped house can block up to 92% of convective heat currents and up to 96% of radiation. Currently, the wrapping is more effective when a wildfire burns past the structure with an exposure of fewer than 10 minutes and is, therefore, not ideal in areas that have high-density housing. In those areas, the spreading infernos can burn for hours altogether unless stopped by firefighters. But as we all know, innovation never stops. The aluminum wraps show great promise in being effective, and further research and development are sure to make them more effective, yet keep them lightweight. But a word of caution is that everyone cannot install them themselves like Martin did, as they need to be installed properly. Of course, this can be changed by establishing a set of standard rules. Remember how we said these wraps are expensive? Let's delve into the cost factor. So Firesat sells its 5 feet wide by 200 feet long fire shield rolls for about $700 for each roll. Furthermore, an installation by a contractor could run into thousands of dollars. In the case of Martin Dilkey, who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area most of the time, he bought wrapping worth about $6,000 from the same company. This was enough to cover his second home at the edge of the small community of Myers in California. The house was about 1,400 square feet in terms of area. These flexible sheets that he used to cover his mountain home aren't used by everyone in the area because they're pricey and quite time-consuming to install. While it's said that it would take about 3.5 hours for 3 people to complete the installation, it took a group of 4 people nearly 12.5 hours. So currently, the list of those who are wrapping their homes only includes owners of super expensive cabins, homes, or resorts. This includes homeowners with properties worth about $5 million in Malibu, California. But the silver lining is that the wraps have saved quite a lot of properties over the years, including some historic cabins that are managed by US government. Wrapping houses is all set to become the new normal as climate change unleashes its wrath in the form of extreme weather conditions and more destructive, nearly year-round wildfire seasons. That's all for today. Will you be wrapping your home to save your life? Comment below. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed today's video, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.